This might be a bad idea. In fact, you might not like this at all. But what if you could reduce resistance in others and get more yeses by actually getting more nos? Hi, my name is John Ryan. I'm a master trainer and coach with almost 3 decades of experience in training development, and I want to share with you one of my top tools for influence and impact. Now, when you think about framing and pre-framing, you tend to think about positive frames. Phrases come to mind such as, "You're going to love this," or "This is going to be lots of fun." And those are powerful. There's certainly a place for those as well. But one of the most powerful techniques that we have at our disposal to impact and influence others is actually negative framing, or what I like to think of as playing the opposite part. This is the same idea popularized by Chris Voss's best-selling book, Never Split the Difference, where he refers to no-oriented questions, or in Sandler sales training, where they refer to it as negative reverse selling. But if you're not in a traditional sales role, it probably is a better fit to think about it in terms of playing the opposite part. We've all had opposing parts at one point in our lives or another, where you say, part of me wants this and part of me doesn't. And there's a natural human tendency, if you're a friend, a colleague, a coach, or a mentor, and try to help someone make a decision, and you point out and advocate for option A, well, all of a sudden, they start defending option B. And if you join them for option B, all of a sudden they go back to option A. So it really feels like you can't win. Enter playing the opposite part. Now, what playing the opposite part essentially is not advocating for A or B, but if you want them to do A, the part that you want them to do, you actually show doubt or hesitation on the part that you want them to do. Playing the opposite part is essentially doubting the option that you want them to choose. So let's say that you want to go for a walk and you say to your partner, "Hey, we should go for a walk." And they say, "No, I don't really feel like it. I'm too tired. It's too hot. I just sat down," or any other number of excuses. Well, why did that happen? Because we played the pro part. And if there's conflict inside, they naturally had to go to the con part. So instead, what we want to do is play the opposite part. Rather than going for it directly, "Do you want to go out for a walk?" you can say something like this: "Would you be opposed to going out for a walk? Is it too hot outside for us to go out for a walk today? Do you have too much on your plate right now for us to go out to walk today?" So instead of us telling them what we want to do, we actually create a space where they can opt in, and that's what reduces the resistance. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't guarantee they're going to say yes. This reduces the resistance and maximizes our chance for having a productive conversation. In 2020, I retired from training and traveling after well over a decade as being a road warrior doing training and development. And not long after that, I got a call from a potential client who wanted me to come in and train his team in person. And he said it beautifully. He said, "Would you be opposed to coming in and training my team over a weekend?" And fortunately, that's not what I wanted to do. I congratulated him on the way he framed the question, but politely declined, and we ended up working out doing a virtual event. So if there's no desire on the other person's part, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to say yes. But if there is some potential, it maximizes the chance that they'll at least consider that as an option. And there are several reasons as to why playing the opposite part works. The first is people tend to prefer their own ideas over the ideas of others. It's not that the others have bad ideas, but we know that our idea is the best idea. After all, if there was a better idea, we would have that idea. So we have a little bit of a confirmation bias towards our own ideas. Also, when we push people, they tend to push back. Many times in trainings and seminars, I will go out in the audience and I'll put my hand up and I'll have someone put their hand up against mine, and I begin to push on their hand. Now, without any prompting, without any instructions at all, what do you think they do? Every time I push, guess what they do? They immediately push back. There's a human tendency that when people push us, when they try to tell us what to do or make us do something that we don't want to do, we're inherently going to push back. So playing the opposite part uses that to our advantage. And another reason is that people want what they can't have. The more you try to take something away, the more they want it. So when we're playing the opposite part, we're saying, this might be a bad idea, maybe we shouldn't do this. All of a sudden, they start looking for ways that it can actually work. So the more you take something away, the more people want it. Now, how do you do the process of playing the opposite part? Step one is you want to think about what is it that you actually want them to do. Then once you have that in mind, number two, you're going to pre-frame it with a little bit of a doubt or hesitancy on the thing that you actually want them to do. So instead of saying to the person, hey, you should do this, which is essentially pushing, you're going to say the opposite. Hey, this might be a bad idea, but have you ever considered this? We're already playing the opposite part. We're falling away, which allows them to consider it and decide if it actually is a good idea or not. Now, as you're playing the opposite part, I really think of it as having 3 categories or styles that you can draw from as you build up these opening phrases. And you don't need to take any notes. I actually have a downloadable note sheet that you can take a look at. I'll put a link down in the description. We have access to all of these pre-frames and more. And the first category is timing and feasibility. So do we have enough time to make this happen? Is it feasible even given the resources and the time that we actually have available? That's the premise. This may be too early to bring this up, but I'm not sure this is even possible, but would it be too ambitious for us to try this? Notice how there's a hesitation there. We're not pushing for anything. We're presenting a concept, but we're not ourselves sold on the concept, which means we're actually playing the opposite part. So that's category 1, timing and feasibility. Category 2 is bad ideas. And this might actually be my favorite. Where before we were questioning if we have the time or the resources or the feasibility to make something happen, we're just questioning the sanity of this idea altogether. So this might be a bad idea, or this might be crazy, but this might be out there, or would it be a terrible idea if we did? That's one of my favorites that I like to use. In fact, I remember pitching a sales training for a medical sales corporation and was finding out about the company and their history and what they've done in the past for training, what the challenges are and things like that. And they shared with me all this information. It was great. And they said, well, what do you think? And I said, this might be a terrible idea. And I didn't even finish the sentence. And both the director and sales manager started cracking up. They loved that it was such a fresh way to look at it. And we ended up closing the deal. So questioning whether or not something is a bad idea allows the other person to evaluate if it's actually a good idea. And the last category for playing the opposite part is opposition or inconvenience. So would you be opposed to X? Or would it be inconvenient if we did X? Or would it be terribly inconvenient if we did X? And I love putting in that adjective modifier in there. We actually have a whole video on framing that discusses this as one of the pieces, because not just inconvenient, because maybe minor inconvenience is fine, but would it be terribly inconvenience explodes it to the extreme and actually makes it more palatable. Sure, it might be inconvenient, but it's not terribly inconvenient. Or would you have any objections to X? So those are the 3 categories of playing the opposite part. We're talking about timing, feasibility, is it a bad idea overall, or perhaps a general opposition or any concerns around inconvenience. And again, if you want a cheat sheet with a bunch of pre-frames to help you play the opposite part, I'll put a link in the description down below. Now, I know this could be premature. In fact, this might be a bad idea overall, but if you're not opposed to it, hit subscribe to stay connected and ring the notification bell to join the conversation. That's it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, develop yourself, empower others, and lead by example.